So the remaster books are finally in our hands, and we get a chance to look at what's coming in the remaster. But on the 15th of November, Paizo also did an errata drop, both for the player core and GM core. But in addition, they did it for other books so that we can kind of start looking at how we're going to make changes to the other books until the rest of the core books drop. Now, the ones we're going to cover today are Dark Archive and Secrets of Magic, and how you can use those books with the new remastered content. In addition to some changes to make it easier to use both a Psychic as well as a Magus for a class. So this was part of a longer live stream that I had that winds up being like an hour 30, hour 40 minutes long. So I thought I'd kind of parse that out into smaller chunks. And this happens to be the one for Dark Archive and Secret of Magic. With all that being said, my name is Don. I'm trying to be the SlyStrategist, and let's go ahead and get into it. So we are now on to Dark Archive. Dark Archive. This is where we're talking about the Psychic. So I know a lot of people actually got comments that people were in some of the videos that I had done about the remaster. People were worried about Psychic. I hadn't gotten anything about Magus, but with Psychic, I did get a bunch of people asking questions, and it was in the Discord as well about the Psychic. So I'm glad that they actually did this. The changing of several cantrips in the remaster affects two of the Psychic's conscious minds. You can continue to use the cantrips in the core rulebook, allowing the Psychic to operate as currently written. Though note the errata to bring these spells in line with other remastered cantrips. If you wish to use the remastered cantrips instead of those from the core rulebook, there are some small tweaks. I don't know why I said that. So tweaks. So now we're going to go to page 19. Oh, that's right. This one doesn't have a front page, so it's actually that's something to note when you're looking at your PDFs. This book here, your first page, let's actually go all the way back up and show you. Your first page does not say front cover, and the next page being the first page, it starts at 1. So when this says page 19, you're actually going to be going to page 20. This is the only book in this errata wave that does it this way. So in Oscillating Wave, Conscious Mind, it gains Frostbite and Ignition instead of Ray of Frost and Produce Flame as standard Psy cantrips. Replace the associated text with the following. So Produce Flame and Ray of Frost are going to be gone. And then when we go down to Produce Flame and Ray of Frost, those are going to be changed. So Frostbite is you can freeze people from even farther away. The range of your Frostbite increases to 120 feet. Your Frostbite also gains the following amp. The amp is you drain thermal energy at a distance using what you plunder to replenish yourself. The orb deals 3d4 cold damage. You gain temporary hit points equal to half the damage the target takes. After applying resistances and the like, you lose any remaining temporary hit points after 1 minute. And amp heightened +1, the initial damage increases to 2d4 instead of 1d4, and the weakness on a critical failure increases by 1. So I kind of like that one better than Ray of Frost. I know I have one player in another campaign that casts Ray of Frost. Always try to cast Ray of Frost, not as a Psychic, I think as a Druid, but they always miss. Just having the name changed makes me feel better inside. And then Ignition. So instead of Produce Flame, it's now Ignition. Ignition, you can drastically increase the heat against targets at a distance. When using Ignition as a ranged attack, increase the range to 60 feet. When using Ignition as a melee attack, your range or your reach increases by 5 feet. Your Ignition also gains the following amp. Amp is you project pure heat that causes a target to combust. The initial damage changes to 1d10 fire damage plus 1 fire splash damage. When using amped Produce Flames as a melee attack, increase the damage die of the initial damage from D10s to D12s. You are not harmed by splash damage from an amped Ignition. And amped Heightened is now, instead of using Ignition's normal heightened entry, the initial damage increased 1d10, 1d12 for melee, and the splash damage increases by 1. The persistent fire damage on a critical hit increases by 1d4. That's a lot to say for stuff that changed for Produce Flame. One thing I would like to point out, and it isn't highlighted here, but this is just part of, if anybody saw the Pathfinder Society release that they had on how they're going to handle some things, remember Pathfinder Society does it in the strictest reading of the rules because every table has to be the same. What they said for a lot of these spells is if the spell has changed and the name is the same, then you have to use the remastered version. If the name is changed, you can continue to use the old spell. Not for Psychic necessarily, but this is just as a cantrip. So Ignition and Produce Flame by Pathfinder Society rules are different spells. So Ignition didn't replace Produce Flame, and Frostbite did not replace Ray of Frost. I always find that kind of interesting. But that's unrelated. Let's go ahead and go on to Tangible Dream Conscious Mind, which is next page. So, and we'll go over those in a second. Tangible Dream gains Figment instead of Dancing Lights. So Dancing Lights, remember Dancing Lights is gone. And it's replaced by Lights. Kind of good because it did require sustain. Dancing Lights required a sustain where Lights does not. But it gains Figment instead of Dancing Lights as one of its standard Psy cantrips. Replace the associated text with the following. So, Figment, your minor illusions shift and dance. The range of Figment increases to 60 feet. When you sustain the spell, you can move the apparent sound or vision up to 15 feet. You can then attempt to create a diversion as usual. Those creatures who disbelieve the illusion aren't affected by this diversion, and your Figment also gains the following amp. So when you amp the spell, you create a particularly distracting illusion as part of its normal effects. Choose an unoccupied square within the spell's range. The illusion in that square provides flanking for a single melee attack made before the beginning of your next turn. If you sustain the spell, the details of the illusion change and shift to keep your enemies unsettled. The flanking illusion's duration extends until the beginning of your next turn, and you can move it to any unoccupied space in the spell's range. The flanking illusion can't provide its benefit against any creature who has disbelieved the Figment, which kind of makes sense. And then to bring them in line with the remaster's damaging cantrips, many of the Psychic's unique Psy cantrips had their damage adjusted. This is all going to be dealing with the spellcasting ability modifier, but we're going through every single line, so we're going back to 17. Hey, Kojo, how's it going? I appreciate you showing up. Right now, we're going line by line through everything in the Errata, and we're 5 books in now. So Dancing Blade is going to change. Once again, they're changing the damage equal to 2d6 plus your spellcasting ability modifier. Spellcasting ability modifier is not used anymore, so it's going to change to 3d6. Then we go to page 21, or in this is page 22. Then we go to Forbidden Thought. 1d6 mental damage plus your spellcasting ability modifier is just changed to 2d6. So generally speaking, you see spellcasting ability modifier, take the die, add 1. And then we have Shatter Mind is the same thing, and 2d4 plus your spellcasting ability modifier is now going to be changed to 3d4. And then we have on the next page, Imaginary Weapon. So Imaginary Weapon cantrip, change your choice of bludgeoning or slashing damage equal to 1d8 plus your spellcasting ability modifier. Now that is going to be changed to 2d8 bludgeoning or slashing damage, your choice. Then we have Astral Rain. Same exact thing. It was your choice of bludgeoning or piercing damage equal to 2d4 plus your spellcasting ability modifier. Now it is going to be 4d4. Whoa, hold on. That's a new one. I didn't catch that the first time around. So it was your choice of bludgeoning or piercing damage equal to 2d4 plus your spellcasting ability modifier. Now, instead of just a single die, for this one, you get 2 die. So it is now 4d4 bludgeoning or piercing damage. 4d4 bludgeoning or piercing damage, your choice. So actually, instead of just 1 die, now they're adding 2 die to that specific one. And then we have the last one of Errata for Dark Archive, and that would be on page 106. And that would be Phase Bolt. Phase Bolt cantrip, replace 1d4 piercing damage plus your spellcasting ability modifier. This is another one where they've changed it 2 die. This is now going to be 3d4 piercing damage. I just saw what you said, Kojo. Let me slide back here for a second. Totally unrelated. Mine just came yesterday. Super happy. I didn't get a sketch cover. I went to my local game store and they had sold the one that they had ordered. Now, we are done with Dark Archive. Phase Bolt is done. now we're going on to Secrets of Magic and the Magus. So let's go ahead and drop this down. And then we're going to our last one, which is Secrets of Magic Errata. So Secrets of Magic book is up, and we're ready to roll through this. Removal of spell schools in the remaster. Parts of the Magus class require some tweaks to be usable. The errata also includes some corrections for the first printing of the book that are unrelated to the remaster. So now we're going to go through these. Once again, notice this says front cover, so we know by saying front cover that we can go to that page. So just, okay, work with me. 38. Arcane Cascade. Once again, this is one I'm going to read for the people who are listening as opposed to watching. So, Arcane Cascade, still single action, concentrate, Magus, and stance. Those are still the same requirements. You used your most recent actions this turn to cast a spell or make a spell strike. You need to meet this requirement only to enter the stance, not to remain in it. Now comes the description. So the description is you divert a portion of the spell's magical power and keep it cycling through your body and weapon using specialized forms, breathing, or footwork. When you're in the stance, your melee strikes deal 1 extra force damage. The damage increases to 2 if you have weapon specialization and 3 if you have greater weapon specialization. Any strike that benefits from this damage gains the arcane trait, making it magical. If your most recent spell before entering the stance was one that can deal damage, the damage from the stance is instead the same type that spell could deal, or one type of your choice if the spell could deal multiple types of damage. So again, these changes are being done because magical schools are going away. These abjuration, evocation, conjuration, transmutation, divination, enchantment, illusion, and necromancy, since those are going away, they had to make the changes to the spell. And you're going to see the same on 48 here. Arcane Shroud. All the spell schools are here in the old version of the spell, so they have to change how it works. So the requirements, your most recent action was to cast a spell from a spell slot or make a spell strike with a spell from a spell slot. Your magic has a powerful after effect, briefly granting you a certain spell. When you take this feat, choose 3 of False Vitality, Fire Shield, and Fleet Step. Flicker, Invisibility, Mountain Resilience, and See the Unseen. You use Arcane Cascade and are subject to an additional after effect spell of your choice from the 3 you selected. This after effect spell's duration lasts until the end of your next turn, or its normal duration, whichever is shorter. Using Arcane Shroud again ends all existing spells you gain from the Arcane Shroud. So, because of that, because of the removing of spell schools, they basically had to reword the whole entire thing, and now you have once again, they had a list of spells right here. Now you have the spells over here, and you would basically choose 3. So that would be the main difference. Now we have with the removal of alignment damage, certain Eidolons, this is when we're getting into the summoner, require some small tweaks to their strikes. So we'll go to page 59. Yeah, Kojo, I know. I do. And the thing is so I had always said melee all the time. And then when I first started the channel, and I had multiple people comment on me saying it that way, so I keep trying to change over to melee. And it's hard. It's hard to keep that up. 59. So hallowed strikes. Your Eidolon's attacks are hallowed by the celestial realm. So we are changing your Eidolon's unarmed strikes. Deal an additional extra 1 good damage, because good damage doesn't exist. It's now spirit. As usual, this extra damage harms only evil creatures. You can't say that anymore, or those with a weakness to good damage, because the titles have been changed. So now it is your Eidolon's unarmed strikes your Eidolon's unarmed strikes gain the holy trait and deal 1 extra spirit damage to unholy creatures and creatures with a weakness to holy. Because of the SRD and the OGL, we now are using holy, unholy, and spirit. Then we'll move on to the next one, which is page 62. Demonic strikes. So it did say all your Eidolon's unarmed strikes deal an extra 1 evil damage. As usual, the extra damage harms only good creatures or those with weaknesses to evil damage. Now it says your Eidolon's unarmed strikes gain the unholy trait and deal 1 extra spirit damage to holy creatures and creatures with a weakness to unholy. What do you think, Kojo? I switch back and forth all the time. If I catch it, if I catch myself saying melee, I'll try to change it to melee, but I don't catch it all the time. It's a mess. It actually, I should have just kept going the way I had it before. Now we're going to go to page 108. 108, that is Gale Blast. In the Gale Blast spell, we're changing something because of the spellcasting attribute modifier. So what it did read was bludgeoning damage equal to your spellcasting ability modifier. Now it is going to be add a die to 2d4 bludgeoning damage. And then we have Haunting Him, which was the bard change that I was kind of jumping the gun on before. Haunting Him, which is a really great cantrip, especially since I love bards. Replace sonic damage equal to your spellcasting ability modifier. That is going to be changed to 1d8 sonic damage. Yeah, 1d8 sonic damage. Also, the spell's heightening entry replace 1d6 with 1d8. So you'll be adding another 1d8. I like it. I love Haunting Him. It's a great spell. I don't know what else to say about it. It is. It's I play a lot of bards, and I use it quite a bit. 127. Now we're on Scatter Scree. This is another spellcasting ability modifier change. So it did read bludgeoning damage equal to 1d4 plus your spellcasting ability modifier. It is now going to be 2d4 bludgeoning damage. And then we have our very last change, which is our last change is on page 130. 1330 is in the Spout spell. Replace bludgeoning damage equal to 1d4 plus your spellcasting ability modifier. You're going to change that to 2d4 bludgeoning damage. And then in addition, to give the spell a little more oomph, which I like that they actually kind of tried to boost a little bit, add the following sentence to the end of the description. A creature that critically fails its save is disoriented by the explosion of water, becoming off guard until the end of your next turn. So it's not the creature's turn, it's your next turn. But that would get added. And I just highlighted the end of the sentence so that I could kind of highlight that. But that whole sentence is going to be added there. So now you get to off guard whatever creature you cast Spout on. And if it critically fails that particular save. That is the errata. That is all the errata that came out for the remaster. Now, I do hope you did like this look at the errata for Dark Archive and the Secrets of Magic, as well as kind of a look into how you might be able to play a Magus and a Psychic based on the errata in the new remastered system. But I do hope you liked this video, and if you did, feel free to like, subscribe, or hit that notification bell. But whatever you do, I hope you have a great day and happy adventuring. Thanks.